Hi, my name is Daniel from Vocal Booth to Go and welcome in today's video. Today we will talk about how to use audio compressor in post-production of speech, singing, sound effects and basically any other sounds, because the way the audio compressor works is always the same. An audio compressor is a program which is part of your audio or video editing software, such as Adobe Audition, Adobe Premiere Pro, DaVinci Resolve, Cubase, Fruity Loops and much more. Of course, compressor don't have to be always just a software, but also it could be a physical piece of hardware. But important is that no matter of the look of the compressor, it always have the same control elements. Threshold, ratio, attack, release, and sometimes even makeup gain. I mainly deal with post-production and recording of human voice. So I will show you how to use audio compressor in post-production of every audio or video content, such as YouTube videos, movies, stream, podcast, etc. The compressor basically serves to compress the peaks of the audio by selected parameters. And thanks to this, the compressed sound can be amplified. Thanks to compressor, you can also smooth out slight volume fluctuations and make the vocal delivery sound more consistent. We will show it on short video in Adobe Audition. This is how the raw unprocessed sounds look like directly from the recorder. As you can see, the overall dynamics is quite large and some peaks reach up to -3 decibels. If I wanted to amplify this raw audio to web-friendly level, I would have to add about 7 decibels of gain to achieve a web-friendly LUFS of -16 to -17. So when I add 7 decibels, you can see that the peaks that were somewhere around -3 decibels and many others exceed 0 decibels. Which is not good because the sound is overexcited and distortion can occur. I will play it for you as an example.
Se můžete podívat. V roce 2010 aplikovali vědci z katedry řídící techniky Fakulty elektrotechnické ČVUT jako první na evropském kontinentu novou metodu, která má ušetřit náklady.
As you can see, those peaks go heavily into the red fields and higher volumes there would be overdrive and audio degradation in those peaks. That's why there is a compressor. It can mute all these spikes without degrading the audio track in any way. But you have to realize that compressing the sound in order to amplify it necessarily means that the noise of the recording itself will also be amplified. Which means that compression should not be overdone, because the more you compress the sound, the more you have to amplify it afterwards. And then the noise comes out. Therefore, it is important to use low noise recorders and microphone, because noise removal degrades the sound. How much depends on the quality of software you use for it. You are probably already interested in how the compressor is set, so I will insert dynamic processing via the effect track, which also occupies the compressor. In DaVinci Resolve, the compressor is also in dynamics, and in Premiere Pro, it's already the same as in Audition. The first thing you need to set when compressing sound is the threshold. So how is the threshold set? Threshold means that you set when the compressor starts to react. You don't want to compress the main energy, you only want to compress the peaks, which contain not too substantial signal and can be silenced. So according to this track of mine, I'll set the compressor to -6 decibels, so everything from -6 to 0 decibels will be compressed by the compressor, and everything below -6 decibels will be left alone. So we have threshold set. It's easy to see here because we have this scale here, but in other programs such as Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve, we don't have any scale, and you have to set compressor a little differently. You have to look at input and output, or there is gain reduction just like in Premiere Pro. In such a cases, you have to adjust compressor according to what you see on the screen. When I release it,
Evropském kontinentu novou metodu, která má ušetřit.
It comes the larger peak here or the small peaks here. There is some gain reduction.
Řízení nasadí.
You can see how it jumped nicely, how the compressor reacted. You don't want the compressor to react here, as is it tiny and you want to react only in those peaks. This means that if the threshold was overexcited, for example at 20, it would already react here.
Prediktivního řízení nasadí.
You see how it reacts here and you don't want that. As I say, you want it only reacts in those peaks, so if we set it back how it was, somewhere around 14, you can see how it reacts nicely on those tips. So this is how the threshold is set. In Premiere Pro it's a bit simpler. Here is smaller indicator. Here it is 0, -3, -6, -12. So I would see that somewhere around -13 I could set the threshold. It's always about how loud you have that track set. You adjust it accordingly in any program. This means that if I reduce the track to 0, I would have to set the threshold somewhere around -20 decibels. It always depends on how loud the track is. Same thing here. If I fade the track, I have to move the threshold lower. And again, look at gain reduction. Here is also gain reduction. It has to react just a little in the peaks. Another important thing that you have to set on the compressor is the ratio. A terribly important thing, without which the compressor will not work. If you have ratio 1, then nothing happens. With ratio 2, it starts to happen that every 2 decibels that are above the threshold are reduced to 1. And when you set ratio, for example, to 4, then every 4 decibels above the threshold will be reduced to 1, etc. Compression ratio of voice is ideal in most cases around 4 or 5. There's no need to work with it anymore, it's perfect like this. Another important value is attack. Attack means how fast compressor will react. 1 to 5 milliseconds is generally recommended for voice processing. Attack doesn't work very well with such a small compressor as we have here, but if there was more compression, for example with some musical composition, then the attack will already greatly affect how compressor affects the sound. The next value is release, which determines when the compression is released. Here is it greatly recommended to set somewhere between 10 to 60 milliseconds. Some programs have minimum value of 50 milliseconds, so we set it to 50. As with attack, with low compression, it is not noticeable, and the greater the compression, the more it interferes with the final sound. And the last value is makeup gain. Usually every compressor has some gain, because as I said before, when the sound is compressed and the peaks are reduced, you know what, it will be better to show it. I check the settings, I see that I have everything set correctly, so apply. Now you can see how the compressed sound looks like. You can see that all the peaks that were above threshold decreased in the ratio we set. As you can see, our overall volume decreased, which is actually good because now we have the ideal volume for the web, around 16.5 LUFS. At the same time, it is far from overexcited.
V roce 2010 aplikovali vědci z katedry řídící techniky fakulty.
It flashes beautifully here, the sound is not degraded in any way, and everything is as it should be. If we go back a bit, you can use the makeup gain to increase the volume and thus compensate for the decrease in volume that occurred as a result of compression. But since we already amplified the track by 7 decibels before, I don't need to add any more after the compression. You can also adjust the final volume in the track mixer. You don't need to use makeup gain. So this much for the description of the compressor and the basics explanation of use. Okay, that would be enough for this video. If you want to improve your acoustics, look at Vocal Booth to Go EU. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and see you next time. Bye!